First of all, big welcome back to Reb David Kunstlinger and Shlomi Yeverovich as well. So gewaldig. It's so gewaldig when the boys come back. The boys come back. You know where they come back to? They come back right over here. Baruch Hashem. Gewaldig. It's good to see everybody back. We're going to start today, Rabbi, a brand new sugya. David, you came just in time. We're going to start a beautiful sugya today. It's a sugya which is negeya to so many of us every single Shabbos, both on Friday night and on Shabbos day, with both Kiddishim that we make. It's something called Kiddush b'mokem suda, which is a phrase that many of us are familiar with, but very little of us, and I believe that I'm right when I say this, very little of us actually understand the ramifications of Kiddush b'mokem suda. What are the details of the halacha? What does it mean, Kiddush b'mokem suda? What is number one? And these are the two things that we have to discuss. We're not going to get to both of them today. Number one, Kiddush we've discussed. What's b'mokem? Question number one, what is b'mokem? And number two, what is the suda? Now this is going to be a nafkamina for so many different shaylas. It's going to be a nafkamina, for example, for people that hear Kiddush in shul. For example, if they make a Kiddush in shul and then they go home, do they have to make Kiddush again where they already in shul? Or for example, this could be even when we have Kiddush in yeshiva, in the Beis Medrash, or in any shul for that matter, and then they go to the hall, or they go to the dining room, and they eat the Suda over there. So the shaila is that Kiddush b'mokem Suda? Am I yotza by just having mezainos, or is the Suda a real Suda? What is the difference between b'mokem Suda and b'mokem Kiddush? So there's a lot, Rabbi said, we have to discuss. And there's a lot of halachas that are very, very negaya to us. These are things that are practical, very, very important. And like I said, I honestly believe that many people do not know the intricate details of what we call Kiddush b'mokem Suda. So let's try to explain it as best as we possibly can. We're all familiar with the Gemara in Pesachim Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph. The Gemara brings over there Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Famous Machlokes Rav and Shmuel, whether Kiddush requires to be made b'mokem Suda or not. Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Shitas Rav is ein tzorech Kiddush b'mokem Suda. Rav holds you don't need Kiddush b'mokem Suda. You can make Kiddush over there, can have the Suda over there, no shaykhs whatsoever. So Shitas Rav, no problem. There needs not to be Kiddush b'mokem Suda. Shitas Shmuel is ein Kiddush ella b'mokem Suda. Now Lemaisa, the Rif, the Rosh, and the Rambam, which is a Zoy Paskin obviously in the Shulchan Aruch, is we Paskin like Shita Shmuel, which means ein Kiddush ella b'mokem Suda. So even though yes, it started off as a machlokes in the Gemara between Rav and Shmuel, Lemaisa, Yaakov Tzvi, we paskin ein Kiddush ella b'mokem Suda. That means, and it could be a big nafkamina, that the Kiddush was never yotza if it wasn't b'mokem Suda, which means you have to make Kiddush again, and if you don't, you're eating without Kiddush. So we're dealing with things that's very, very negeya, akiva. That's why it's important to understand clearly what's going on over here. The Rashbam in Pesachim brings two reasons why we need Kiddush b'mokem Suda. What's pshat? What do we need Kiddush b'mokem Suda for? What's the purpose of Kiddush b'mokem Suda? What do I need it for? Zug the Rashbam, two reasons. Reason number one, it's a pasuk. It's a pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'karosa l'Shabbos oineg." As I state in the pasuk, Zog the Medrash, which the Mishnah Berurah brings in the beginning of Reish Ayin Gimel, look it up, Sikot and Aleph, brings this Medrash, and the Rashbam says this is pshat why we need Kiddush b'mokem Suda Yitzi. Is v'karosa l'Shabbos oineg, is Chazal telling us is that in the place that you're koire, meaning Kiddush, shom te oineg, that should be the oineg, meaning the Suda. So Zoy Paskin Lemaisa the Medrash, and that's why we need Kiddush b'mokem Suda, which by the way the Rosh and Reb Kiva Eiger hold with dealing with the Doraisa. Zev. Kiddush b'mokem Suda, according to that, comes from a pasuk. That means we're dealing with the Doraisa. Rabbeinu Yonah and the Pri Megadim hold it's only an asmachta. We're not going to go into that right now. But we're dealing with something very chashuv. According to the Rosh and according to Reb Kiva Eiger Moti, Kiddush b'mokem Suda is a Doraisa. Comes from a pasuk. Okay? Say it. Okay. Whatever darga you go with that, whatever it is, and if you hold it's an asmachta, say it. The next reason the Rashbam says is it's a svara. A pasha the svara. What's the svara? Chazal were masakin to make Kiddush ala yayin Zug the Rashbam, what yayin? Nobody has yayin just running around and hanging around on tables. Elamai Zug the Rashbam. It must be that what? That they were misakin to make Kiddush on wine, b'toich the Suda. We're having a Suda, Mamela, that's what you're doing. So of course it has to be Mokim Suda, because that's where the wine is coming from. Okay? So these are the two reasons, Ness, why we need Kiddush b'Mokim Suda. Okay? We have yet to define, Tuli, what is Kiddush b'Mokim Suda. Right? That's what's a very, very important idea to remember. Now, by the way, Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Heilige Baal HaTanya says clearly that this halacha of Kiddush b'Mokim Suda Shleima applies both to Friday night Kiddush and Shabbos Day Kiddush. So all the halachas that we're going to be discussing now on a Geya, both to Friday night and Shabbos Day Kiddush without any shaila whatsoever. Now there are two aspects. I'm trying to make this as clear as possible and try to do it as methodical as possible because it's complicated. And like I said, most people, Rabbi Isai, do not know many of these halachas. So it's kedai for us to know clearly where they come from and what they are. There are two aspects to Kiddush Mokum Suda, maybe even three. But let's discuss one by one. Aspect number one is Kiddush has to be, very simply, K'pshutoi, b'mokoim Suda, Israel. Right? It has to be b'mokoim the Suda. Number two, and it has to also be right before the Suda. No delays, which we'll get to as well. We'll try to define these things. And number three is there cannot be a break where you go out and come back in. Now we'll have to explain one by one. Those are the aspects I want to try to get to today. The next aspect, which we'll have to get to on Monday, will be what is the Suda? Is it yayin? Is it grape juice? Is it mazonis? Is it only bread? That we'll talk about in Mitzvah Hashem on Monday, I hope. But the idea is, we're talking about Kiddush Mokum Suda right now. We're going to get to the b'mokim part before we get to the Suda part. Now, by the way, another ha'orah for the olim to remember is that this halacha of Kiddush Mokum Suda Tuli applies to both the one making Kiddush and the one listening and being yotze from his Kiddush. Okay? So it applies to everyone. Kiddush Mokum Suda is not only on the Makadesh, on the one Azariah making the Kiddush, but also on the one listening who's being yotze by his Kiddush. You with me? So far, Rabbi Isai? Shloima, so far, so good? Yeah? Gewaldig. Okay, just like the olden days. So there, let's go very quickly through B'mokim Suda to understand the first aspect. And that is that when you make Kiddush, it has to be b'mokim the Suda that you are about to eat. Again, like I said, on Monday we'll discuss the definition of what a Suda is. Can I be yotze with mazonos? We'll talk about that on Monday. I'm not discussing that right now. We'll have to put all the pieces together on Monday. But there are ideas like this. Number one, Mishnah Berurah discusses in Sifkat and Gimel the shaila of mipina lapina, which means when you go from one corner of the room to the other corner of the room, is that Kiddush b'mokim Suda? So for example, if I will be making Kiddush on that corner of the Beis Medrash, but the meal, the Suda, is going to be over here, or if we're going to say that you could be yotze with mazonos, can I, Ruvain, make Kiddush over there and run over there and have a mazonos? Is that Kiddush b'mokim Suda? It's called mipina lapina, from corner to corner. So the idea is the Mishnah Berurah says that no, lachatchil, if you want to be yotze Kiddush b'mokim Suda, the mazonos or hamoitzi or whatever is considered to be the Suda has to be right there. To go even in the same room, but to the other side of the room is not Kiddush Mokum Suda lechatchela. Of course, b'di'eved it works. Of course, b'di'eved it works. That means, Raf. Of course, if you make Kiddush on one corner, to go to the other side is not lechatchela. It works b'di'eved. If you have in mind, then it works even lechatchela. That means, if I know that I'm listening to Kiddush in that corner, but my mazonos or my challah, my bread, whatever it is on that corner, Eli, so then the halacha is if my das is that way, then it works. Are you with me? That's Kiddush Mokum Suda. Reuven, you got that? Clear? That's Kiddush Mokum Suda. I'm talking about the same room only. So again, Rabbi said, I want to know how many people are not yotze Kiddush Mokum Suda lechatchela. Many, because they don't know about this. They hear Kiddush, then they're like running around, what do I do? Okay, they can find the mazonos over there. Again, if you go mipina lapina from one corner to the other corner, if you did not have in mind, it's not lechatchela. The bread, the mazonos, whatever it is called Kiddush Mokum Suda has to be right there. If you had in mind of it, then what? Then it's okay. Then it's lechatchela to move from one to the other. Next, cheder lecheder, room to room tuli. Now this is the guy over here in yeshiva. You have Kiddush over here, and then you have a room over there. Or for example, I was in America one time, and I remember the Rav made Kiddush in the Beis Medrash, in the shul he made Kiddush, and the Olam went downstairs to have a mezainis and to be, Kiddush, and it was America. They didn't just have a mezainis. Don't worry about it. There was Kenai Nahora, the meatballs that were coming out over there. I knew I wasn't sure I was in America till I saw the meatballs coming out on the Shabbos morning by the Kiddush, not the Kiddush club, to Savat the Nisht. I'm talking about Noch davening, yeah? Okay. So Kaponim, so I didn't know what to do, huh?
You should have seen the Kiddush club.
You should have seen the Kiddush club. If that was the Kiddush after davening, can you imagine the Kiddush club? I hear. So Kaponim, so. You're saying get them to daven, so we should. I'm not getting involved in Kiddush clubs. I don't know. Good. All right, Rabbi Sai. Cheder lecheder, Rabbi Sai. You're not Yaitze Kiddush Shemokim Suda. That means, you with me. If you hear Kiddush in this room, and you go to another room to have your Hamoitzi or your Mazainis, your cake, whatever is considered to be Kiddush Shemokim Suda, you're not Yaitze Kiddush. Because that's not Kiddush Shemokim Suda. Kiddush Shemokim Suda means that the Hamoitzi or Mazainis, which again we'll discuss on Monday, what's qualifying as Kiddush Shemokim Suda, but whatever it is that you're using has to be Nochi in the Mokim of the Suda, in the room. That's Avada. B'shas Chag, says the Chovetz Chaim, if you knew about it, you had das, and you could see it, all right, there's what to talk about. But to go mecheder lecheder, Baruch Avram, is definitely not lechatchila. Definitely not lechatchila, okay? Unless you have in mind, or you can see it, whatever. But the general idea is to go from room to room is not beseder, and mibayis labayis for sure not. Right, let's say your neighbor says to you, can you make Kiddush for me? So you make Kiddush for them, then you run to your house and have a mezainis or a hamoitzi. That's for sure not going to be good enough in that case. Okay? Again, b'di'evet sheb'di'evet, if you could see the mokum that you made Kiddush and you had das, mibayis labayis, maybe it works. But again, Rabbi Sai, we're trying to be lachatchela dika yidin over here, right? We want a lachatchela dika place in Olam Haba. So we try to be lachatchela dika yidin. Mordechai's maskim to me. Shkoyach. Let's move on, Rabbi Sai. Okay? So that's a very important thing to remember, that the Kiddush has to be b'mokim suda. Let's move on to the next one. I believe that most people do not know this. So Rabbi said, let's learn halachas that unfortunately not everybody knows, but they're going to know right now. The Darkei Moshe brings a maril. The Darkei Moshe brings a maril. Rabbi said, you'll say this to people, they'll be like, what? What are they teaching you over there? What are they? Which chumras are they teaching you? Yeah, Amaratzim don't know halacha. Go open up a Shulchan Aruch and go learn Hilchos Kiddush. And you know what's going on? Zuk the Darkei Moshe brings a maril, that he brings a new pshat. Kiddush b'mokim suda. It doesn't mean geography, in the b'mokim, in where I am, in the location. That's not what it means. Zuk the Darkei Moshe b'shem the maril. You know what it means? It means la'alta. Kiddush b'mokim sudanes means la'alta, that it has to be b'mokim suda means immediately, and he says no difference between zman gadol and zman kotzer. And as I paskin the Ramah, Reisha Gimel Sif Gimel, you look it up yourself. The Ramah says it. Unbelievable. How many people are makpid in the Ramah and Hilchos Purim that he says to be yotze the sheet of drinking lekulei alma, that your mom is drunk? This Ramah we know. But this Ramah, Rabbi Sai, every single Shabbos, Kiddush b'mokim suda, according to the Darkei Moshe, if you have a break, it could be you weren't Yotze Kiddush. If you weren't Yotze Kiddush, your ganze Suda is eating without a Kiddush. How many people are Friday night doing this, where they have a break and they're not Yotze Kiddush, according to the Darkei Moshe, according to the Ramah? So the shaila is, what does it mean miyad? What's the definition of miyad, right? So like everything, there's a shaila. The Aruch HaShulchan says it doesn't mean such a tiny amount, because people, he says, change their clothing between Kiddush and Hamoitzi, whatever it is. Elamai, it means, and as I paskin Rav Moshe, it means a nice amount of time. Whatever that means, he doesn't say. Zman harbe. There shouldn't be a Zman harbe break between the Kiddush and the Suda in that case. The Ktsois HaShulchan, Reb Chaim No, all right, Reb Chaim No was someone that was able to be cholik on the Chazon Ish. So we're dealing with a Psayid that was able to be cholik on the Chazon Ish, right? No one could just be cholik on the Chazon Ish. Reb Chaim No, in the Ktsois HaShulchan many times, was cholik on the Chazon Ish, and he says, you cannot tell me it's also to be mafsik for a second, for a moment. It can't be. Elamai, he wants the taina. The break is toich kedei achilas pras, which is somewhere between 2 and 9 minutes. Right? It's somewhere between 2 and 9 minutes. I found Rafal Kinshuvas brings down a sheeter of 12 seconds. that you cannot have a 12-second break between Kiddush and the Suda. I couldn't find where. I found Baruch Hashem afterwards he was referring to what? Avada, the Siddur Hayavitz. The Siddur Hayavitz, or the whole Mahalach and the Cheshbon, how it works, Chav Beis Amma, like we know by the Tilis Sitayim, whatever, that there's a Shaila, according to some, 12 seconds, Rabbi Sai, right? And the most makel shita that I found was the Marikash. The Marikash says that the shear of Hefsek is the amount of time it takes to digest food, which is 72 minutes. Whatever it is, Rabbi Sai, right? The Guinness Vodim, also the Shari Tshuva brings the Guinness Vodim that Paskins the same way. Al Kaponim, whatever it is, the Maril, which is brought down in the Ramah, La'alocha La'maisa, Yaakov Tzvi is, Kiddush B'mokum Suda means don't have an unnecessary break. Don't have a break in the middle. The Mishnah Berurah discusses what happens if you have an oinus. What happens if the baby falls and starts to crying and they cuts themselves? You have to be busy with band-aids and zachen and that. What am I to do? There was like an hour break, right? So the answer is, says the Mishnah Berurah, if it was an oinus, as long as when I made Kiddush originally, it was going to be b'mokim Suda David, then what? Then it's okay. As long as it's an oinus, it's okay. Not only that, if it's letzorich hasuda that you're making the break, then it's also okay. For example, if you have to wait for the oilam to wash, and Kenai Nahora, it takes time, or you have to wait for the oilam to bring in the drinks, so you've got to bring in the drinks, and you've got to do this, that, and the other, letzorich hasuda, then to have a break, would be okay. But stam to have a break in the middle is a problem. And again, if we want to be yotze Kiddush Makom Suda, al pi the Ramah, al pi halacha lamaisa, we should try to make sure to have it immediately and not have any unnecessary non-letzorich Suda breaks in that case. One last shaila Rabbi said for today, and this will finish off the sugya of b'mokim Suda. And that is, again, halacha that unfortunately I don't know if people know this halacha. And that is, one more condition of Kiddush Makom Suda is that it has to be that there's no shinoi mokim. Now, this is very negeya. Sometimes a guy hears Kiddush, he runs outside to the street to call his friend, who runs back inside and wants to make a mazonis to have Kiddush Makom Suda. That's not good. Why is it not good? Because there's something called a Shinei Mokim. A Shinei Mokim, we learn from the Gemara in Psochim, Halacha Namaisa, we pass on this in Nechus Brachas. Everybody knows that when you're drinking a coffee in the Beis Medrash and you go outside to make a phone call outside on the street and you come back as that, you have to make a brand new Shahakon, and if you don't, you're stealing from Hashem. Poshet stealing from Hashem. This is a halacha that everybody knows. So that's called a shinoi mokim. What's a shinoi mokim? So the Rabba Mahesa Chadas. Mimela, in order to have Kiddush b'mokim Suda, it has to be that there's no Hesa Chadas in the middle. That means if you hear Kiddush and you go outside, it's something considered to be a shinoi mokim, not a different room. Outside the house, into the street, shinoi mokim, Hesa Chadas, not Kiddush b'mokim Suda anymore. Rabbi, so on Monday, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to go through what qualifies as a Suda. Have a wonderful day.